I remember the class of 1945, and some of my best teachers was Mr. Barb and Miss Huntridge and Mr. McCormick, and Mr. Kiplinger became my neighbor later on. My first wife, Jackie, and I had a dance band called the Jack and Bill Hepcats. I didn't know we were going to get married, but that happened about 5-6 years later. Had some real good memories there, and I miss the class of 45, and God bless every one of you.
The McCormick family was a very good neighbor. They, after we built our house here, they came and built a new house right beside us. And we remember, the only thing I remember about McCormick's class was one day that I was in his class, and he started blowing some bubbles out of gas bubbles, you know, with gas, regular gas in them. And he did that about 12 times. And the gas bubbles would go up towards the ceiling, and then before they got to the ceiling, he would take and burn them, to catch them on fire, and they would burn out up there. The fire department, evidently they had a fire someplace, and you could hear this thing going round all the time. And he started looking up at the ceiling, and I think everybody thought that was the funniest thing, and they just really laughed about it. He thought maybe he'd put the fire up on the ceiling, I guess.
I'm Marilyn Pitts Cooper from the class of 41. Some of my greatest memories are the music department, where I was in a string quartet, and we went to national contests, and then with band and orchestra. I was a majorette in the band, believe it or not. I even went to kindergarten there, and I remember making a little wall vase out of clay. It was painted green. And Paul Gray's sister was a teacher. I really enjoyed it. And we lived across the street, so we only had, on Carpenter, so we only just had to run across the street. Mr. Swanger was the principal. He could write with either hand. He'd take attendance that way. All three, the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, all sat in that big study hall that was across the front of the high school. The seniors had to sit two in a seat, but it was fun that way. Basketball in Wellington High School back then, no one liked to come to Wellington to play because it was where the cafeteria, I think, is now, and there's that big beam that goes across the ceiling towards the north end, and visiting players would shoot and their ball would hit that beam before it got to the basket, so they didn't like playing in Wellington.
I graduated in a class of 50 at that time. Right now, I think the graduating class this year is, in 2011, was something like 140 some. This school we talk about now here in 1946 is now called the McCormick Middle School. That was the only school that Wellington ever had. And we had all 12 grades, went there together, all the way from grade 1 through 12. We graduated out of that area. In 1939, we had that beautiful auditorium was built on the north end of the north side of the building, right next to Dixon Street. And at that time, it was the largest the largest auditorium with full fixed seats in Lorain County, the largest one. Even the city of Lorain didn't have that. But we had, I think, 525 seats, and I had a, you could sit right there in the theater and watch a basketball game, or we had all kinds of stage shows. We had the different choirs would perform, the bands would perform, and it is still being used for that today. In the class of 46 at that time, the administration faculty, we had a wonderful, wonderful superintendent, Arnold Kiplinger, who at one time, he was a teacher for many, many years and became a superintendent. Principal was Roy McCormick, and then we have, it's already named after him, McCormick Middle School. Also, we have a street out here by McDonald's that's named after Roy McCormick. Really nice lady was Miss Sarah Huntridge. She was our former teacher and a junior high principal, and she was thought of wonderfully. The other one of my favorite teachers was Homer Barb. Many of us boys in my class had Homer Barb for 6 years. We had him 4 years as in carpenter work, and then we went on to have him for 2 years as taking draftsman work, and he was really highly thought of. And of course, Russell Kepler, who was our coach, he was also a teacher. The athletic field, which is on Dixon Street, was purchased by a farmer in 1937 when I was 8 years old. 12-acre field. $2,300 is all they paid for 12 acres. Our football players from my class, Jim Massard, Lawrence Griggs, Jim Denisi, Walter Grafflin, Charles Saprito, Victor Barson, Neil Gibbons, Jim McKisson. Our coach at that time was Russell Kepler, Herb Fisher, Richard King, Ralph Keyes. Ralph Keyes happened to be he now lives in Pittsfield, and he was our class president.
I'd like to tell a little story about being in Girl Reserve Initiation Day. We had a bunch of people, girls, who were to portray or dress or try to look like someone else in the school, a teacher or whatever. So I selected Mac McCormick. If you remember, Mac was very tall, bald, and had a wart on his nose. So I had a wad of gum on my nose all day that day. That was a fun day for me.
I'm Eleanor Oni Broom. I graduated in 1959. I have a sister, Ruth, who graduated in 1952, and she had a great story about Mac. We all know Mac was a legend in his own time. He had a great sense of humor. One time she was late for algebra class with Miss Bennett, and because she wanted to get a drink of water outside the room, she was late, so Miss Bennett sent her to Mr. McCormick's office. She got in there in the office and didn't know what to do, and he said, "What are you doing here, Ruth?" "Well, I don't know. I was late for Miss Bennett's class." He said, "Why were you late?" She said, "I had to get a drink of water." He said, "Just go back to class, Oni." So she went back to class, and she was sitting in class very quietly. She was very quiet in school. She never got in trouble. And pretty soon Mac came in with a glass of water, and he interrupted the class. Miss Bennett looks at him, and he said, "Ruth, here's a glass of water for you. I have to give her water because she's always thirsty." And he gave her the water, and she drank the water, and it dribbled down her blouse. It was a dribble glass. And she was pretty embarrassed by that. Another thing that he did was really great. My father was a custodian and retired from the school in 1971, I think it was. He was a custodian and a bus driver. He loved that job. And he had to quit school when he was about in 10th grade. And Mac used to send boys down to see Dad in the boiler room when they were threatening to quit school. And his dad's job was to talk them out of quitting school. I was always proud of my dad about that because school meant so much to him. And now My children and my grandchildren are all attending, have attended or are attending Wellington schools now, and we're very proud of it.
I'm Harry Lee, and I remember the senior day program we put on at high school, and I played the piano, and we all introduced ourselves. You know, when it was time, we all said our names. And it seemed like Spoonie Ayers was a Hawaiian woman dancer, like Chiquita Banana or somebody, and we had Pete Whitney, and Bill Tegmeyer was on the drums, and I can't remember the songs we sang. It was all something that we thought about at the moment, you know.
Well, we had Miss Cox was our first teacher when we were in the 9th grade, and she was very certain that we were going to get things done right, and we had to go to class. And then after class, we had to get the dinner ready, lunch ready, for the teachers that came down to eat. And then after that, we cleaned up the mess and had to be back in class at 12:30, and you had better be late because Mr. McCormick got on to you. So, but I never had to take an examination in that class. I liked it so well, and they taught us how to sew, and some of the girls couldn't even know how to cut out a dress, and we had lots of fun with them. But it was a busy time. But our Mr. Wells was our history teacher, and he was full of talk. He knew lots of good things about Wellington.
I am Helen Latimer Young, and I graduated in 1945. And I think I have very fond memories of Mr. Swanger, and also of friends that after school we would go to a hangout. It's called Gills for milkshakes and so forth. And my high school days were very happy. I only came to Wellington, though, first as a sophomore.
Hello, my name is Jack Sumter. I'm a member of the 1964 graduating class of Wellington High School. My memories of high school started in my freshman year. They opened up the section on Carpenter Street in 1960, I believe it was, and the freshman class was assigned to the first floor. We had the first floor throughout our 4 years of high school, and that was quite enjoyable there. My favorite teacher, I would say, would be Mr. Barb. Mr. Barb was the industrial arts teacher and mechanical drawing teacher. In mechanical drawing, he taught me quite a bit that eventually led me to a job in engineering when I graduated from LCC after graduation. Along with mechanical drawing and industrial arts, I was on the stage crew, sound crew, and projection crew. The projection crew was probably my favorite because you got out of class to show movies to the different classes, and you could do that. One of the memories I remember most is the noon movies that we used to show in the auditorium. When I was a senior, we were showing the movies like Long Long Trailer, and I can't remember all the names of the movies, but the 5th grade class and the younger kids would come in and pay 3 cents to watch the movie during their lunch breaks. The funny part about that is I found out many years later that when I was a senior showing the 5th grade class, my wife was a member of that class. So that was quite odd, but it did work out that, you know, that we did meet many years later and got together. But that's the majority of the projection crew that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the sound crew, going on all the different choir deals and stuff like that that we set up in the auditorium.
Okay, my name is Joanne Wacker Pasadine. I started Wellington High in the 9th grade. There was 6 of us that graduated in the 8th grade from Huntington, 3 boys and 3 girls. So we were bussed in and got on the bus and was bussed back every night. And Miss Huntridge was our first homeroom class. And then we went into study hall. Study hall was the 10th, 11th, and 12th homeroom at that time. And I had Mr. McCormick for my science and general science. But I did make an accomplishment. Where the ball field was, I hit a ball out to Cortlandt Street one time. That was an accomplishment, you know. So.
Hi, I'm Joanne Gannett Dickinson, and I graduated in the class of 1962. A lot of my memories go back to the school because my mother taught there for many years. You'll remember Catherine Gannett, who was the typing and the business teacher. Well, when she first got out of college and decided to come and teach in Wellington, she got a job at the high school, which was the old McCormick School, and moved in as a room and boarder at my Grandma and Grandpa Gannett's house. There's where she met my dad. She kind of dated him a little bit, and then after a few years, and she was teaching in Wellington, they decided to get married. Well, in those days, you were not allowed to be married and be a teacher. So she left Wellington system and went to South Amherst, the Amherst District, Firelands, I guess, and she taught there. Finally, there were children coming along, and she dropped out of teaching for a while to stay home with my sister Lois and me. And then when she decided to go back to work, she still couldn't get a job in Wellington, so she went to Penfield and taught typing out there. A few years later, they changed the rules, and she could come back to Wellington, which she did, and she taught here from, I can't even tell you how many years. I don't remember what it was. But that's very interesting that you couldn't be married at that time. Actually, when I was teaching a little in Wellington, I remember a couple, and this would have to be in the 70s, that could not work in the same building. They were allowed to teach. One taught at Westwood, one taught at middle school. Kind of weird, I think. The next thing I would like to talk about are color fights, and everybody who was in them knows what they were. Actually, what it was is your class tried to get your colors higher than anybody else, than the other class. It was seniors and juniors, and this was the perfect setup because I lived on the house on the corner on Forest, and I could get my colors out my bathroom window on the 2nd floor, and the whole world could see them. And right across the street was Judy Wirtz's house, Judy Offenier's. And so all her gang would gather at her house, and all my juniors would gather at our house, and we would, we didn't fight. It was just a lot of fun, you know, pushing around, trying to get in the house to get your colors down. I think that's when everybody started writing their colors and their year of graduation on rocks. And one year we did a big tug-of-war across the creek out by the cemetery. And a few people got very, very wet that year, but it was lots of fun. Things went on and on and on, and eventually they decided that it was too dangerous. We were good kids, but yes, things did happen, and they thought it was too dangerous, so they stopped it. And you know what? After that, the organized color fights were not very exciting after all. When my sister was a senior, we were driving way too fast, I'm sure, down Cortlandt Street, and we were in my dad's red Pontiac. And she was a senior, and the juniors came out of who knows where, I think maybe Kay Foster's house, and they attacked us with water balloons. Smash, smash, smash all over our front window. Cracked the front window of the car to smithereens. We were so scared to go home. We finally went, drove in the driveway. Dad, we have something to tell you. He comes out. We said, we got hit by some water balloons, and he goes, oh well, he said, that's what my insurance is for. Good old Dad. He wasn't mad at all. Got one story about Mac for you. Good old Mac. We all loved him. There was a fellow who was teaching business at that time, Delmar Phillips. And he had this habit of every day after lunch going into his room, which was right up by the typing room, right near my mom's room, and he would stuff his foot into the waste paper basket and push all the papers down, getting ready for the rest of the afternoon. Well, my husband, dear Dan, was with a group of guys that always gave him a hard time. So while he was out for lunch, they snuck into the room and they emptied the basket. They filled it with water. They put paper all over the top of the basket. Delmar comes in from lunch and he walks, stomp, stomp, stomp. Well, maybe just one big stomp in the waste paper basket because water came sloshing off all over, out all over the place. So he grabs the guys, I think there were 3 involved, I can't remember the other ones, and he takes them down to Mac's office. And I can remember Dan always saying, and it was so funny because we're walking down there, and he's going, squish, step, squish, step, squish, steps. Well, it must be that Mac heard him, and he walked out into the hall and said, what's going on here? And Delmar starts to tell him what these boys did in his room, and he says, okay, you go back to your room and I'll take care of it. So Delmar turns around to go back to his room, and Dan says, I actually saw Mac smile.
I have so many great memories from Wellington High School, but I decided to talk about band. I was always in band, always in choir, and all the extra offshoots, triple trio and all that. But my band directors, when I first started, was a man called Mr. Gorley, and the band was not very good. It was horrible, as a matter of fact. And then we got a new band director who was Mr. Jones. And we used to call him Spike, just for the heck of it. And he liked it, so we called him Spike to his name. Then after Mr. Jones came Bill Shepard. Bill Shepard was one of the most talented musicians you could ever imagine. Played trombone in Tommy Dorsey's band, and decided to go into teaching school. And we had so much fun with him, but I remember the first time we had to march in the Memorial Day parade, and we were so used to doing things with Spike Jones that somebody said, well, Spike didn't let us do that. He always had us do this, and he just stopped dead in his tracks and he said, I'm not Spike. And everything changed after that. And I have so many good memories from him. I played clarinet. And our family wasn't real rich, but my dad always promoted music. He was a very talented person himself. Whenever any of us kids decided we wanted to get into music, my dad was extremely happy. But the only clarinet that they could afford for me back at the time, I couldn't afford the wooden clarinet. It was about this long and it was silver, and Bill Shepard used to call it my tin whistle. Well, 4 years ago, I was going to make a trip out to Iowa to my daughter Kimberly's, and she's a secretary at a big Methodist church in Waterloo, and once a year they have big band music for Sunday. And it's really strange. They like take up the collection to String of Pearls and things like that. It's really fun. Well, at the same time I was going to go out there, there was an article in the Wellington Enterprise about Bill Shepard. And I saw that he was teaching at UNI in Waterloo, Iowa, and he still played with a little Dixieland band. So immediately I called Kimberly and she said, yeah, Mom, I know him. He comes to the Methodist church and plays a lot. They were going to have a dance the Saturday that I was out there, and she said, I'm going to call him and see if he could come up to the dance. He came up to the dance, and Kim says, do you think you're going to know who he is? And I said, well, I think so. And as soon as he walked in there, we recognized each other right away and just hugged, and we talked and we talked and we talked all night long. And I always said, what are the chances that 40-some years ago I would see my high school band director in Waterloo, Iowa? It was wonderful. And then he came back here for a visit with some of the Wellington High School students, and right now a lot of us still keep in contact with him over the email. But I will say, this is 2011 and he's still teaching music at UNI in Waterloo.
My name is Morris Mo Furkran, and I'm a 1945 graduate of Wellington High School. One of the things that has stuck in my mind is when we played our last football game in the season of '44, we were playing Rocky River. We played some schools that we normally didn't play. Like we played Oberlin, Olmsted Falls, Rocky River, and those were some of the schools that we hadn't played in the past. But anyway, our last game, we were at Rocky River, and we had a perfect season going. And we had 45 seconds to go, and the score was at that time tied. And Rocky River sent in a sub. They sent in. His name was McCormick. Last name was McCormick. I don't remember his first name. And he was about 6'3" or 4", and I was a defensive halfback. And so we knew that they were going to throw a pass. And so once they snapped the ball, and I faded back to defend, and here he comes. And so we got back into the end zone, and the quarterback threw the ball, and just as McCormick passed behind me, he was about 6-8 feet behind me. Just as he passed behind me, he stumbled. I could have caught the ball, but I figured, why catch it? I may not, the ball was on the 40-yard line. I may not get back to the 40. It was 4th down. I'll just knock it down and we'll take over on the 40-yard line. And the head lineman up there called pass interference on me. Gave them the ball on the 1-yard line. And we had, say, maybe 40 seconds to go. I'm not sure how many plays it took them, but they pushed it over and they beat us by that 1 touchdown. I never will forget that. And we were robbed. That ruined our perfect season that year. So Russ Kepler, he also was our coach. And I will say this too, and that year, that was the first year that we ever used the T formation. Some people said we couldn't master it, but we did. We had a very successful season. We beat New London that year, I think by about 3 or 4 touchdowns. But anyway, that's one of the experiences that I'll never forget at Wellington High School.
When I was in 3rd grade, up in the real old part of the school, we had a terrible time trying to concentrate because we were watching them build the 1939-40 section. And Miss Day had a terrible time trying to keep us interested.
Hi, I'm Patricia Mysick-Sumter from the Wellington High School class of 1971. And our class had the distinction of being the very last class to graduate from the McCormick School. We were supposed to be the very first class to graduate from the new high school, but I think it worked out better for us, being the last class to graduate from that nice old building up there on South Main. I don't have certain memories. I have little snippets of everything from football games and basketball games and different groups and things I belong to at school. One of my good memories are being a babysitter for the teachers' children. I babysat for Mr. and Mrs. Stoker and Mr. and Mrs. DeVoe a lot. And oh, I just love that. It got started with Mr. Stoker. He was looking for a babysitter because his babysitter, I don't know, was probably going on a date or something. And I'm walking down the hall and I saw him standing in front of the science room door. I had gum in my mouth and I was very careful to keep it under my tongue. And he came up to me and he put his arm around my neck and he said, "Patsy." He was the only one in my life who called me Patsy. And he said, I could smell that gum way down the other end of the hall. And I went, "Oh, I just put it in my mouth." He goes, "I don't care, you're spitting it out." So after that we got to talking about babysitting for his children and kind of went from there. So I always enjoyed that. And I enjoyed all of my teachers. I don't think there was a teacher in that school system that I did not like and I did not learn something from. I just loved Mrs. Standard. I would have done anything in the world for her. And I wish now that she knew that I was writing little Irma Bombeck type columns in the Wellington Enterprise. I'm hoping that she would be so pleased to see them. My sense of, since I love to talk, I can thank Miss Gratz for helping me with my speech. So every teacher meant something wonderful to me, and I can't tell you how much I loved being at Wellington. Our last day of school, graduation day, I think it was June 6th, 1971. We had family come out from New York, and it was a beautiful day. And we were at the athletic field, the football field, and there we are standing, waiting to go out on the field, and we all march out to pomp and circumstance, and we're sitting there and we're listening to everyone do their speeches, and all of a sudden they started passing out the diplomas, and the wind picked up and the clouds came in, and everybody had to run into the locker rooms. And not everyone got their diploma that day out on the field. They all had to go into the locker room because the bad weather made front page news of Wellington High School's graduation in 1971. So our class, like always, went out with a bang. My father moved us for a little while. We had to go out to Penfield. And I can't tell you, even as a young child, how happy I was to come back to Wellington. So my children went to Wellington, our children, Jack and mine children went to Wellington. And we're very happy that it worked that way, that there was that continuity. No one in my family had that continuity, as they all lived in New York and things happened. They didn't get to have their kids go to the same school they went to. So that means so much to me. Jack and I have been gone for 5 years and we're back now. And that sense of continuity just is what brought us back. So our love for Wellington and our love for Wellington High School brings us right back home where we started.
Okay, when I started teaching in Wellington here in 1968, in the fall, Mr. Golding was the head basketball coach, and they needed a 7th grade basketball coach. I had never coached before in my life, so Mr. DeVoe was the 8th grade coach, and so he helped me for 4 years. I coached 7th grade basketball, and so I was at the middle school, and we had to practice up in the town hall. My classroom was upstairs at the end, I forget the number, maybe 324, something like that. It's where Mr. Gove taught his algebra classes, which I had sat in as a student. And I know that it was hot, with no air conditioning, and the sun beating over there on that south side there, or north side of the building there a lot. We had windows open, but not much air. So I remember that specifically up there on the 3rd floor of the building, which was new in 1954-55 when we first moved to Wellington from Oberlin. That was the first year that it was opened for classes. I remember the chalkboards. Now I'm fairly tall, and the chalkboards were down low, and so whenever I'd write down low, students in the back could not see. So when we built the new high school, I had the chalkboards raised so the bottom of the board was at least 3 feet off the floor, and the top was up here, and most of my students couldn't reach the top. And of course, I always wrote on the board facing the room. The kids could not understand how I could write the way I did, but I know that was a trademark that they'll probably remember.
I'm Walter Young, and I spent all 12 years at Wellington School. I even started in kindergarten, Mrs. McCormick's kindergarten. I did enjoy school, although I was not a very good student because I worked most of the time at our implement business. I did enjoy a lot of the teachers, Mrs. Stanton, Mr. Swanger. Glenn Swanger was probably one of my very favorites. I really admired him. I even sold him some soybean seed that I'd grown. And the best part of my school years is I found my wife in high school. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to tell you a little story about Mac and his sense of humor. He came in on Monday morning in the study hall to take muster, and he took his gavel and rapped it, but we had already cut the handle on it, and it went flying. So he just lifted the podium lid and banged it, no expression on his face at all. And so the next day he came in with one of these little clapper bells, and he hit that for quiet. Then the next day, which was Wednesday, we took and stuffed the clapper bell with paper, and he hit it, nothing happened, and he picked it up and looked at it, took the paper out and banged it on the podium. So the next day, and all this time, he never had an expression on his face, never said a word. So the next day we took the clapper out of it, and he came in and he hit it and nothing happened, and he looked in it, and so he just banged it on the podium. So come Friday, we didn't know what was going to happen. Anyway, he came in and he looked over the study hall, and he put his hands on the side of the podium, and the god-awfulest ooga horn sounded off in the corner cabinet. Everybody in the place jumped out of their seats, and he never smiled, never said anything. Just that was it.
I graduated in 1940 from Wellington and have a lot of happy memories. One of the most memorable one is I think our class was the first to have a protest. We marched downtown. I played in a band at the time, and we were protesting that they weren't going to let Mr. Shields present our diplomas to us, and we objected to it. So we marched downtown and had a little protest. So I think we were a little ahead of our time on that. But, and I also remember when the football players used to play over at the fairgrounds, and it was so dusty sometimes. It was terrible. But Bob Young was our president at the time, and we've had a good many get-togethers since then.
I went to grade school through grade 8 in Huntington, and then went to high school, grades 9 through 12, in Wellington, in the building which is now McCormick Middle School. Although I think in the 9th grade, we were mostly in the part of the old building, which was then, and may part of it still be there, behind the newer part of the building in the front. There was no gymnasium in the newer part of the building, and the gymnasium and basketball court were in part of the older building immediately to the back. Later on, I think what was the gymnasium was used as a cafeteria for many years. The gymnasium was small, and the basketball court was considerably undersized to a standard-sized basketball court. And our home team had an advantage because a heat pipe ran across above the north basket, and you couldn't put much arch on the shot for that basket, but the visiting team wouldn't always know that. I was small when I was in high school, and I didn't go out for any sports until my senior year. I went out for basketball, and I did make the team as a substitute guard. In those days, the basketball was made of leather and it had seams, and it had a inflatable rubber placed on the inside for inflation, and then it had a little place where it was laced up with leather, and that sometimes made a knob on the ball. And the baskets were attached to the backboard at that time by a flat metal plate rather than rods as they are now. And my probably most vivid memory of the few times I got to play, I stole the ball on the opponent's end and was dribbling down the floor pretty well ahead of anybody else by myself. And I remember thinking, now I'll look very stupid if I should miss this layup when I'm down here all by myself. So I will just lay the ball up against the backboard very easily and let it roll into the basket. Well, part of that worked fine, except the ball rolled onto the metal plate and the seam kept it from rolling into the basket, and there it stayed, right there on the metal plate between the backboard and the rim of the basket. And there was none of the players or coaches or anybody else at that time that could jump up that high to dislodge the ball. So they had to call timeout and get the custodian with a pole to knock the ball down. So I guess I was more embarrassed by that than I would have been had I missed the shot.
Hi, my name's Phil Sheffield. I graduated here from 1955, and when that new wing was at that time on Copperton Street was just done, and that's hard to believe it's 60 years ago, but we had fun in high school, and this was a study hall in those days, and again, everybody waited to hear Mr. McCormick's jingling keys and no one to keep their mouth shut. So good memories, all of them there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Hi, I'm Don Sheffield, class of 62, and I just have great memories of this study hall. From I was on first period, and you know, you didn't do much studying. We used to roll marbles on the floor. We had a teacher named George Green who we used to devil quite a bit. He was a brilliant man, and we had a lot of respect for him, but we also we also pulled a lot of pranks on him. But that's one of my fondest memories of this part of the building. Of course, I went to elementary over there and high school over here, and like I said, like he said, you have good memories and bad memories, but it was fun overall.
Good afternoon. I'm Mr. Hazlett. I graduated in '77. My sister here graduated in '67. We're coming back this year. She came in from West Virginia. I came in from Dayton to take a look at this awesome auditorium that's going to be disappearing. I was telling the gentleman behind the camera, I remember in the '70s when we opened up this to do the new stages, we had to put all new lights in these fold-up boxes and that big black adjuster that we put in behind the thing over there with all the dust and sparks we had. It was something that hadn't been used in about 20 years when we did that. But we're anxious to take a look. Now, I went through 8th grade through here. Because we're the largest class from Wellington. That went to Brighton in 6th grade, and they moved us to in here when the high school was open. So I graduated from the new school, but I wasn't one of the first ones.
I was in the largest graduating class. We had 101 students, and it's awesome to be back here. I'm glad to hope I get to see a whole lot of people that I know.
My name is David Steyer. I'm a 1967 graduate of Wellington High School. I attended elementary, junior high, and senior high school here in these buildings. I remember we're standing here in the hallway of what is now the first grade Used to be the first grade section. I don't know what they use it for now. And we're just outside the auditorium. Some of my fondest memories are of the auditorium. We used to go out for a lunchtime recess, and after we'd been out about 15, 20 minutes, they would call us in, and we could go in, and for 3 cents, we could watch a movie. And they would show these Republic serials, movies, and you'd come in and you'd watch a portion of the movie. They'd shut it off. Recess would be over. The next day you'd watch another one, and then at the end of the week on Friday, they'd show the big ending, and I think that used to cost a nickel on Friday. And at the end of the year, they would use the proceeds that were in excess of the cost of the film to buy candy bars. And on the last day of the last movie, when you went out, there would be these boxes of candy bars, and you could pick a candy bar. When I was a little kid, that was a great day for that, because it symbolized a lot of things, and one of which was the end of school. So we were very excited about that day. I remember just how much I loved school. I looked forward to coming to school, and I really appreciate what this school gave me. The teachers, the custodians, the coaches. It was a wonderful foundation. I went on to a military career, tested out for my bachelor's degree because of the education I got here, got a commission, retired from the Navy as a naval officer. I've just had a great life, and this school provided that foundation. And I was thinking about this this week, and most of all, I appreciate the citizens of Wellington for providing this educational opportunity to the children, their children, and me. And I thank you for watching this. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Nathan Anderson, graduate 1994. This is my 4th grade classroom, Mr. Johnson's room. It was probably 1985, 86. I can remember sitting in a chair about right here, watching at lunchtime when the Challenger exploded. After lunch, we came into our classrooms and we watched the footage of the explosion, and that's probably the biggest memory I have from this room. Just coming in here and checking out the scenery and seeing how nothing's really changed since I've been here in the last 30 years.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy Gill McCartney. I graduated from Wellington High School with the class 1965. We are being honored tonight, and I'm very thrilled to be here. I love this school. I loved growing up in Wellington. I was only 2.5 blocks from the school, so it was easy to get here by walking. And I had wonderful teachers here. I'm going to be so sad to see the school go, but we will have all the memories that we've had for the last 50 years plus. Thank you very much.
Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we're traveling along, singing a song, side by side.
And we are side by side, and I'm the graduate from the class of 1963, Sandy Hansen. My name's Alexander. I've been married to my husband for 47 years, who went to a neighboring school. But we did share going to choir and triple trio and that type of musical things, going to the different schools like Midview High School and whatever the others were. I didn't know him then, but he was there doing the same thing as I was doing. And I really enjoyed music in my life. I think Mr. Feller was our music teacher, if I remember correctly, a gentleman, and we dearly loved him. I just went down and visited the music room, the choir room, and band room, and that was a lot of fun. And I remember my Latin teacher, I was trying to think of her name, but she gave me a little dish, like for mince, for a wedding present. She sent it with one of the classmates. I still have the dish, and I've been married 47 years, and I think of her. Mrs. Piper, I believe her name was. So anyway, class of 63, and my husband Norman here sharing the memories as we go down.
And we won't mention I was at Keystone High School, just 5 short miles away, right?
Memories etched between the pages of our mind. Bye.
Hi, this is David Steyer again doing the tour of Wellington Senior High School. I'm in the second, I think it's the second edition now. This is the McCormick building, I think is what it used to be called. And I'm standing outside the big study hall. And the big study hall used to be rows and rows of those old desks that the seat that you sat in was attached to the desk behind you, and there were inkwells. And I used to sit in this study hall, and the study hall was wonderful because if you didn't want to study, which was about 50 to 60% of the time, you had these huge windows from almost floor to ceiling that you could look out, and you could watch the traffic, you could watch the maintenance guys mow. But the most important thing is actually above the study hall, which was Lowell Lutz's history class that I took as I think I was in the 10th grade when I took his history class. He was also my tennis coach, and 67 was the year that we were co-champions in tennis of the Lakeland Conference with Vermillion. And when I was in the 10th grade, I was in this history class, and we had this notebook that we had to fill out, and we had to answer questions at the end of each chapter, and periodically Mr. Lutz would check these throughout this term. And I was less than diligent on mine, and Mr. Lutz came through about halfway through the semester to check mine, and I had missed about 18 chapters worth of questions. Mr. Lutz folded my spiral notebook up, and you can't get away with this today. He smacked me on top of the head with it in front of the whole class. It made a huge noise, slapping noise. He just hit me once, laid it down, and said, "That didn't hurt you because there was nothing in that notebook, Mr. Steyer." And that was a defining moment for me. I went home, and for the next month, all I did was those back questions. And the next time he came through, his comment, as I remember it, was, "Oh, this ought to be good." And he said it loud enough so everybody in the class could hear it. He opened up the notebook, and he goes, keeps paging through it and finding question after question answered, and saw that I was completely caught up. And he didn't say anything. He just laid it down and kept walking. And I said to myself, he said, well, maybe this brain works. And I owe Mr. Lutz a huge thanks for finding that sensitive motivational tool that all teachers are looking for to motivate a student. Thank you.
Barney Hartman, class of 1963. We started school here in 51, and it was easy to remember because 52 was second grade, 53 was third grade. It was kind of an easy thing to remember. But the fourth grade was my most exciting year here. I was in Mrs. Fisher's class. The date 5/5/55 came up that year, and Mrs. Fisher wrote it on the board and asked if any of us knew when that would happen again. And Susie Johnson Rosa and I both raised our hands, and we both said 6666, and we chatted about that. But Mrs. Fisher, Frances Fisher, told us that she was born in 1909, and that our class was very special because most people would live to see the ones column change in the year. Most people lived to see the tens column changed, and quite a few people lived to see the hundreds columns change. But our class, because we were born in 1945, would see all 4 digits change, and that we were special because of that. And today I think of the teachers that didn't leave anything in the student's mind to make them feel special. That's nothing to feel special about other than the fact that we were born in 1945, the year the war ended. kind of a special class, the last class before baby boomers. It was interesting that the year that we were born, they formed the Cleveland Browns after they won the war. And we've watched the world change, but 45 was a mighty good time to be born. And 63 was a mighty good year to end up with the Studebaker. They went out of existence that year also. But Bob, appreciate you doing this. It's interesting. Thanks. God bless you all.
Hi, this is Jim Lockwood and Bob Ainer. We're from 62 for myself, 63 for Jim. We've been coming to the alumni meetings for a long time. We enjoy it, and we're very sad about the school
being torn down, which should not be, but no matter what. This is our last supper. We're going to take a walk through the halls longer than usual, and this will be my last year here. So it was a great school. Sorry to see it go.
Love it. Been here for the whole 12 years of our school life, and
yep.
And it's a great school.
Photo bomb.
Photo. And thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
My name is Blake Stone. I went to grade school, middle school, and high school, all 12 years at Wellington, and I graduated in 1965. I remember my first grade teacher, Mrs. Finley, who was apparently a prisoner of war in the Philippines during World War II. And then when she came back to America, she started teaching school here in Wellington. I was a little guy, but I remember her from the first grade. I had a lot of good times in Wellington, and I was very happy here.
Okay, I'm Gail Marie Fannin.
I'm Beverly Greenbank. Ada.
Linda Wasicki Anderson. Debbie Wilson Hammer.
And we're the class of 71.
That's right. We were the last class to graduate from this school. So we're so sad they're tearing it down.
Good old Wellington
We're
High.
celebrating. Bev's here from Florida.
Debbie's here
from Akron.
And she's here.
I live here in Wellington.
I still live in Wellington. I'm on Pequodry. Where are you living?
You're on Pequodry?
Yeah.
Where?
Down from your dad's.
We're on Take, guys.
Okay, so we between Pitts and Pitts and 58. Between Pitts and 58.
Where? Which house?
Just
Sorry,
downhill
Bob.
from
You
where
can
Avi
edit
Ward
it,
used to
right?
live.
From where?
Okay. Where Avi Ward used to live, remember he?
Yeah.
You're telling
Girls, we're on camera. I don't live there anymore. I ran away.
Why don't I ever run into you?
So the school looks the same. We miss it.
Same
Happy memories.
always.
Teachers, your favorite teacher? Oh my
Mr.
gosh. Mr. Murray.
Mr. Hyde. I love the
I
math.
don't think I had a
Hyde
favorite.
was the best teacher.
I liked looking at, what was his name?
Larry DeVoe.
Mr.
No,
Burke?
no.
Mr. Burke was...
No, he dated a girlfriend. He dated the Spitzer girl.
Mr. Murray. Oh.
What was his name?
Spitzer.
Girl?
Yeah.
Mr. Spitzer was our teacher.
You're going to have like 30 seconds of tape.
Yes.
It's all going to be edited.
Oh, well, then I liked looking at Mr. Spitzer.
Yes.
Is there anything else we want to say? We wish
Golding,
more
Mr.
people from the
Stone.
class of 71 was
the rest
here.
of the class.
And we did see Pope Denise in there.
Yes, Pope was here.
Yeah, he's here with his wife someplace. Yeah.
That's his sister.
So,
Oh, it's his sister? I thought it was
No,
his wife. Okay. I'm sorry. Well, he's married, isn't he?
so
Okay.
happy memories.
sorry, I didn't mean to hit you.
Okay, you guys.
This is fun.
Okay.
So we're signing off.
Sign
Talking
off.
about wax.
Okay, we're back.
Okay. We want to say hi to our friend Fran Lloyd Adams, who was not able to be with us today.
Florida.
She couldn't make it up, but Bev came and
we miss
Debbie
her.
and Gary, and we miss Fran. We wish you were here, Fran.
She's here in our memories.
Anybody else we miss? I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of people we miss, but she's the one that would hang out with us. Are we done?
We have Gary here now.
I was on my way to Village Market. I was on my way to Village Market, and I happened to see some people stand outside that I thought I would know. I did know these people, but Hi, Fran. I hope you're well and, you know, whatever.
She is. She's well and happy.
Cheers. What?
She's doing great.
Happy
Okay.
and well, yeah.
Okay. I'm done. I'm done.
We get together with Fran once a year, Fran or Bev, so
Yep.
it's been great. Great memories.
Last time we
Friends
got
forever.
together was last June. We went to Beverly's private beach in Siesta Key.
I had a blast.
At her beach house, and we loved it.
Okay.
Okay, that's all. Yeah.
We're done.
Mary Hartman Meininger, class of 64. And in our senior year, we were having a class picture taken, and it was in the wintertime. It's in the middle of our album, actually, our high school annual. It was a horrible day. It was snow all over the place and colder than it had been for months, I think. And I was just coming back from the flu, and I got into class, and they announced that we were going to go outside to have a picture, and I just was fuming. I thought, well, this is stupid. I'm going to get sick again, and I was just throwing my own little hissy fit, and I was always petrified of Mac, and so like most of us in our class. So he came roaring down the hallway announcing, "Seniors, get outside," and I was just livid. I was totally livid. And Tom Harmon, who was next to me in homeroom, Hartman, stood beside me, and he about had a heart attack. He kept saying, "Mary, just be quiet. It'll be okay. Just quiet down." And we've got this picture in the album where he's standing there looking at me like he's afraid I'm going to implode, and I have the most hateful look on my face. I was about to cry. I was just throwing a fit. That's all there is to it. Mac never knew about it, so that was good. But it's in the album, and I have lots of classmates who love to point that out to me when we have our get-togethers. That's enough.
Okay, my name is Josie Farrago Boone, and I am from the class of 1961, which will be 55 years next year. And one of my memories is color fights, running through somebody's backyard. I believe it was on Cortlandt Street, and there was Mike Beeler, and he was being chased by Boogie Beal, and Mike was quite a bit shorter than Boogie, and he made it through the backyard, and Boogie caught the clothesline right across his mouth and broke off 2 teeth. And Mac was running behind him with the 2 Airedales. So that's one of my fond memories. So
I am Angie Farrago Brinker, and I graduated in the class of 1953. One of my fondest memories is I was on the girls' all-star basketball team, and we played in front of the whole school back in our auditorium, and we were on the gym floor. And that was one of my greatest memories of being at WHS and at the middle school.
Okay, I gotta know.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm returning. One of my other favorite memories was trying out for cheerleader as a freshman on the stage, and we had to do a group cheer and an individual cheer, and I was scared to death, but I was chosen. I was a freshman varsity cheerleader, and that was a pretty good honor back at that time. But I do think it had to do a lot with Joe and Carl being upperclassmen, and I think they made their friends vote for me. So that was one of my very fondest memories.
My name is Teresa Farrago Sengus, and I would like to welcome you to tonight's alumni meeting of Wellington High School. I was the first member of the Farrago family to graduate from Wellington High School. Since then, we have added over 100 members of our family to Wellington High School alumni. They are my brothers and sisters, sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws, cousins, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and we're still going strong. So we're very proud of Wellington High School.
All right.